There's a line in a song that I personally hate that goes, "All you need is love." Now, aside from the obvious jokes about humans needing food and water to survive, and not just chemically induced feelings of affection, the line can mean, one can assume, that love can make up for any deficit in skill or work. This game, however, takes a big, steamy dump on that interpretation. There is no question that there was a lot of love involved in making this game. Most of the team responsible were made up of people behind the Anima Beyond Fantasy tabletop game, where Gate of Memories gets its origin. Not only that, it was backed on Kickstarter by over 1,500 people excited to see it come to life, making just over 110,000. Yet despite that, and despite the development running over by 2 years, the resultant product is so messy and flawed, you'd think that if they truly loved it, they would have done it the kindness of drowning it at birth and ending its misery. Okay, maybe that sounds a bit cruel. I can forgive the early PS2 style graphics, where the cut and paste textures leave the world feeling very bland and flat, or the voice acting that sounds like they only had time for one take, and one of the actors says "baby" in such an inorganic way it makes you feel a little bit greasy.
Ignore that nonsense, baby.
These are minor sins that can be excused due to budget, even if having cutscenes where the characters don't move at all feels a little bit weird. The main issue is that the biggest sins in this game are whoppers. Anima Gate of Memories revolves around two central characters, a woman named the Bearer, her real name having been eaten by the second character, a book called Ergo. Yes, that's right. Eaten by a book. Now, I wouldn't call the main character wooden, but I could take a sander to her face, throw on some nice varnish, and have myself a fancy hat stand. It may be because part of her has been eaten, but she doesn't exactly react to situations in the way that the game seems to assume she will. Betrayal. Have some ellipses. A reign of monsters. Or dots. Accidentally triggered a fight against a creature thought to be extinct. Not a damn peep. Ergo calls her baby, however. Unlock the floodgates, we get an angry grunt. She can and does show emotion, but it's like she either didn't get the script, or is expecting there to be a cue of some sort to tell her how to react appropriately. If it's supposed to be that she's a stoic with no outward emotion, then play that card, and play it hard. Don't half-arse it, and leave her looking like maybe she's just a little bit slow on the uptake. And as for the book, he's supposed to be arrogant, witty, kind of a ladies' man thing, but all the game keeps giving you is terrible jokes and questionable remarks. Normally, I'm not one to shy away from games that dance over the line of decency. I play quite a few Japanese games, to be fair. But at one point, the book alludes to having fiddled with the female character in her sleep. Okay, creepy, but that's his character, right? Well, she doesn't even comment on it. We know she doesn't like this behaviour, but only because the write-up on Kickstarter says she doesn't like it. It never translates through the character very well at all. There's zero character chemistry between the pair, so it's almost impossible to feel for the characters, or to become invested. You get more character building at your local Build-A-Bear. In fact, a lot of the story in this game doesn't translate very well. Not because it was in a foreign language, it's just, well, let me explain. Most of the world building is done through optional conversations that can be had at save points, or through brief loading screen flashes that you'd have to probably take a photograph in order to read. Later on you can read up about the world, what's going on, but it's only available in massive chunks that feels like it's being forced down your throat, just to watch you choke on it as you vainly try and figure out what the fuck is going on, while the game laughs at you smugly. The whole game feels like a fanfiction being read by someone who knows nothing of the source materials, but the writer has provided links to the appropriate Wikipedia pages. The Bearer is a member of an ancient organisation dedicated to saving the world from monsters. You've been sent on a mission to regain an artifact that pertains to the end of the world from another member gone rogue. This event is clearly supposed to stir some kind of emotional turmoil in the main character, but she didn't seem to get the memo. Just as well, because that quest is abandoned almost as soon as the game starts, leaving you to flounder around for a new goal other than take a look at our vast and empty worldscape. The guy that was supposed to explain what the hell is happening and fart vaguely in the direction of a plot was stashed in a room that I couldn't find for about 2 hours, and I only found by accident while I was exploring a field. See, areas can be accessed and have triggers and switches for events, but actually be lacking the events themselves until much later on. You can almost complete whole sections of the game, but not fully complete them, because despite the open world element, you weren't supposed to go there yet. You can complete a level 2 or 3 levels beyond what you were supposed to, you'll just never actually get the boss or the cutscene that has to go with it, because it's not there yet. It's confusing, a bit jarring. Yet if you're trying to work out when to go back to semi-completed areas, you might as well throw a dart at a clock and hope for the best. Any indicator of where I was supposed to be going, a quest log, a hint on the mini-map, hell, I'd settle for a Professor Oak style telling off, him yelling in my ear telling me I'm not supposed to be doing that. That would have made the situation bearable. It just felt like they'd wanted to make it a free-roaming explore-as-you-like style game, but in the end decided against it, without undoing all the work they had done before. Like changing your mind mid-sandwich, after realising that tuna and jam really don't work out. But instead of making a whole new one, you just smeared peanut butter over the top and hoped your tongue wouldn't notice. Now, as I said, the graphics can be excused. Some of the places in the game do look lovely. The more enclosed the space, for example a mansion level later on, the less you notice the repeating patterns. But the menus are scruffy. And I can see the look they were going for, it comes out badly. It's hard to read, hard to navigate, and navigating a menu that looks like a note someone scribbled down while on the phone is hardly intuitive. This easily could have been solved if they replaced just the plain pages with, say, a book-style navigation, or even bigger font, splitting up the sections of the menu so they look even slightly different, so you've got some idea that you've switched between them. Clear and concise menus are one of the basic rules in game making. Not only that, but during the first boss fight, there's a big mechanic reveal. The book that's been following you, Ergo, that supposedly contained the monster that almost destroyed the world, can actually change into a person. You can open the book and release him. You can control him as well. And normally that's an awe-inspiring moment in a game, the big transformation, a big reveal. And it would have been. Except he already had a character page in the menu from the start of the game. Just by looking in and changing my equipment, I knew he was coming. There was even artwork. The big dramatic reveal was ruined. The combat and controls are the meat of the game. Both characters play identical to each other. Same skills, same combos, same everything. There's almost no point in being able to switch between them, which you can do by tapping a shoulder button, except one has light-based attacks and the other has dark-based attacks. Certain enemies are immune to light, some are immune to dark. That's about it. That's all the difference, really. The combat is, admittedly it's fast, and it feels very smooth, bar a few things. The lock-on option, which, given how fast you're supposed to move and fight, is essential. It's bound to the left stick, the controller, which you also use to move. Now, it's so awkward that it leads to accidental unlocking of targets, especially in the middle of a quick-paced fight. Often, I'd use a charge attack, accidentally click the stick, and untarget my intended enemy, and go sailing off a bridge, landing in water. And because I can't swim, it would respawn me up on top of the bridge, and respawn all the enemies as well. I know it sounds a bit like sour grapes, but after the 10th time doing this, you have to wonder whether my thumb actually has some kind of weird vendetta against me, or perhaps if the controls could have been done a little better. There isn't even an option to go in and change what the buttons are bound to, so there's actually no controller options whatsoever. And that seems a tad archaic. Not to mention that the camera is incredibly over-enthusiastic. It makes the platforming sections an absolute nightmare. Too often the camera would follow the character in question mid-jump and swing into a different perspective, changing its facing, so now instead of jumping forward slightly, you're leaping forward, or you're jumping, say, slightly to the left or slightly to the right, completely missing your goal just because the camera moved. After a few tries, you can learn to compensate, you get an idea of where you want to go and how the camera's going to move, but if there are enemies around you and you just respawn them because you fell in water, you're going to be pissed 3 or 4 tries in. The enemies have almost no animations either. There's no block button, only dodge, and the enemies animate their moves as they do damage most of the time. The first you know about an attack 90% of the time is when it's actually smacking you in the face. If there had been an ability to block, this would have been a lot better. I mean, you could have had one character that specialised in magic and was quick, whereas if we switched to Ergo, he might have been better at, say, blocking. He might have had like a special magical barrier. That would have been perfect, because I'd be able to switch to a character, block, and then quickly switch back and start attacking again. That would have been brilliant. But no, these weren't in there. All in all, the game is not terrible. There are some good points. The story would be very, very interesting if they built it up properly. Some world building and maybe a few NPCs to chat to at all in the game would have made it so much more inviting. A tutorial mission with more in-depth explanation of the order that our character belonged to and the people she worked with would have made several events in the game a lot more significant. An option to remap the buttons would have been amazing and should have been implemented. It would have made the combat system 1,000 times better, along with the block option, and proper enemy animations would have made it so much easier. When a game asks you to rely on reflexes, you should at least give people something to react to. Also, while I'm on the floor and the recovery animation is playing and I can't move, shouldn't I be immune to damage? Maybe I'm just being a bit of a traditionalist. The issue is thus. The whole thing feels like a proof of concept, more of a beta game than a full game. That maybe they had ideas in place that, if they had been fully worked and reworked, would have been amazing, would have made for a great game. But in the end what you get is a skeleton of a game, something that promises to be beautiful, with a ton of stuff thrown in unpolished. Like an essay you've half done before realising you only have an hour left to go, but you've got another 5 pages to do. It's going to be mostly citations. It's half-implemented story and half-implemented gameplay, and the two halves don't make a complete game. They just make you bitter with resentment when you see what might have been and what was promised. But hey, at $40 for the special edition, at least it's cheap.